BBB. I don't even know if this is still a podcast. Are we now YouTubers, video content
Anything.
providers? I don't know what the official term is. There's probably not really an official term for us, is there? Let's be honest.
No beds.
We could go with that, yeah. So we are now officially live. I can see us on all my dashboards and what have you, everything I need to see. So this is our preview prediction piece on Eubank Williams. It's just good to have some boxing back, isn't it?
It's really good, and I think that's why everyone's so hyped for this fight. A, because it's a good fight, but B, because of, we'll call it a dry January of UK boxing, and because we've been starved of it for the whole month, really. Unless you've been watching some of the slim pickings from the stateside, then it's enhanced it, really. Like I say, it's a cracking fight, but just because of that, because of the fact we've had no boxing, it's added to it, and it's give it feels like a longer build up. It's more than just fight week to fight week. It feels like they've had the whole month, and I've noticed Sky started plugging it again this week, and Sky Sports News, from when I've been flicking over the channels working from home. Liam Williams was on live the other day and stuff on Zoom, and it's really, people are really pumped for it, I think, and it's a cracking fight for boxer and Sky Sports to start off 2022. Genuinely, 50-50, I think, anyway. Grudge match, domestic rivals from Cardiff. Cracking, really looking forward to it.
I think as well, it was initially meant to be this weekend, wasn't it? So the fact it's been delayed through, obviously, again, COVID seems like the story of the last 2 years. It's just almost added to that, and we're almost at what we class as pre-season. Is that a fair assessment? Like, if you're going for a football equivalent, there's the excitement, and you look at the calendar. Obviously, we talked about what DAZN had coming up, and a few other cards on Sky have obviously been announced since then. And it seems the next couple of months is almost boxing every weekend, and in some cases we've got 2 or 3 shows in one weekend. It's incredible. And I think in terms of a main event on the main Sky platform, there was rumours, wasn't it, pay-per-view. Eddie Hearn maybe made some slight digs of, it's going to be on box office, and whether it was originally going to be or not, and Sky sort of stuck their fingers up and thought, well, actually, we'll put it on the that's not mainstream, is it, but like the main normal subscription base of Sky Sports.
Yeah,
it's great for fans, isn't it? It's exactly what we want. This is almost pay-per-view, but then you sort of feel like you're getting it as a bit of a freebie for if you're a paying Sky customer anyway. And I think, it's, in terms of boxer, if they're wanting to relaunch their product for 2022, it's a cracking fight to do that. And we'll get on to whether I agree if it's a 50-50 or not. But on paper, it's as closely matched as you'd like. There's a genuine bit of needle there, a bit of grudge between them. 2 domestic fighters, but above domestic level, within that fringes of the world title scene, and it's got a whole lot of significance for both fighters. It's going to be fascinating to see where they go after it, and obviously dependent on the outcome.
No, I do agree with you. I think both very talented fighters, sort of maybe haven't quite made that jump up, to elite level. Both have tried. Both have got good wins, on the record and stuff. But I just, maybe like you say, sort of that fringe level. And I think I guess it's a must-win fight for both, really. Maybe pedigree's sort of standard of opponent is you'd have to say with Eubank, hasn't always beat them, but he's got De Gale on his record. He's lost to Groves. He's beat Yildirim. He's been in with some people. He's been in with Billy Joe Saunders and lost, but Liam Williams again is had that sort of that double 2 fights with Liam Smith. We were at one of them in Newcastle. Still not really sure why that was in Newcastle, but anyway, it was lost them both, which. Liam Smith's a very, very talented fighter, no shame in that. But it's sort of regrouped down, again at middleweight and beat Heffron, both former British, champions and stuff. So I rolled the dice again against Andrade last time. Didn't disgrace himself, but did get beat. So a very, very interesting fight, sort of crossroads fight for both guys. I think must win, I guess, for both if they want to again try and push on to the upper echelons, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a huge fight if they've got genuine aspirations of getting that world title. Obviously, neither of them are young, prospect, inexperienced. They both got a lot of fights under their belt, and probably at an age where it's almost last chance saloon. I mean, never say never in boxing. We know that, like, they could lose and come back and get another opportunity, but there seems to be so much on the line for both men. And obviously, you've talked about Liam Williams there. So, like, you look at him and you mentioned his sort of recent losses when he has made that step up in between the sort of Smith fights and the Andrade one. He went on a bit of a resurgence, didn't he? Like, going up from super welterweight, junior middleweight to 160 pounds, and it changed trainers, fighting out of the Ingle gym. Obviously, make of that what you will. Seemed to be stronger, fitter than ever. He was at that lower level, but building a real bit of momentum, and there were a lot of people backing him to get the job done against Andrade. Obviously, it wasn't to be, but put up a good performance against a genuinely world class opponent.
Since then, though, he's moved on. He's obviously with Adam Booth now as well, which
exactly that. I was just going to say, like, obviously because of that result or whatever's gone on in the build up to that, he's gone away and looked at what went wrong and changed trainers again. I mean, he's only got to look across the ring to see somebody who's gone from trainer to trainer. Like, both men have done that, so it's really hard to pick and say which one's got the better corner, because as experienced a trainer as Adam Booth is, he hasn't been working with Liam Williams for that long.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that in an Adam Booth fighter, you think of him as a sort of training these defensive, slick, back foot boxers. Like, you look at Michael Conlon, for example, he's got with him Josh Kelly, Ryan Burnett, going a little bit further back. And he's always had that in his locker, that he likes these sort of, dare I say, flashy, showboating defensive movers. Liam Williams is not that. So I think from one point of view, if you're Williams, you just come forward, aggressive fighter, you're looking at what's gone wrong. You might think, oh, well, I need a bit more work on the defensive side of things. So theoretically, changing to someone like Booth is going to improve him defensively and hopefully, from his point of view, maintain his offensive weapons. But we know it doesn't necessarily work like that. And I think a big question going into it regarding that relationship is, have they had enough time to implement what they want to do? I mean, am I right in thinking that Booth worked with Eubank Jr. for a little bit at some point in the past as well? He seems to be that many trainers, and they're going on about having this like blueprint, and they know what it takes to beat Eubank. I think a lot of people do, but whether Liam Williams can bring that to the ring next weekend, I was trying to work out the date in my head there. Is it 5th of Feb? Is that the right one? Yeah. On the 5th of February, like, will he be able to do that? I think there's only going to be so much that Booth can implement and change, and it'll be interesting to see what changes have been made, successfully to the Liam Williams we've seen recently, and whether that'll be enough to frustrate and to beat Eubank.
I think, like what you just said there, and that's how I envisage Liam Williams in my head, like you said there, come forward, aggressive fighter. And I think in my head is how I think you play it on the night as well. And again, that's the fascinating thing about the Adam Booth link up, because stereotypically, like you said, you think in your head, you think flashy, technical, is skillful, and I'm not saying Liam Williams isn't, but my first thought of Liam Williams, especially at middleweight, is a bit of a wrecking ball approach, like that Heffron fight, and he went on a few with stoppage wins. I think he blasted Andrew Robinson out of there as well, and that's how I see him. And I think I'm sure it's only like a 5,000, 6,000 arena, and it'll be 95% Lee Williams, I'm guessing, and that's just how I see him doing it. And that's what in my head is how I think of Lee Williams: come forward, aggression, and I think that's in my head. That's how I see it playing out, and I think he might go from Eubank from the start. But again, that isn't necessarily the Adam Booth way, which again makes it all the more fascinating. And on the other hand of that, you've got Eubank, who again is in another one of his transitional periods, and
his whole career's been one.
Well, exactly. Well, that's a good point. But like with the new trainer in the legend that is Whyte Jones Jr., I think he's had 2 fights under him now. I was at the last one in Newcastle against. I'm not even going to. Good luck. I know. Again, oh God.
This is where you're clearly looking on BoxRec.
No, Wanik Awijan, whatever. Anyway, and it was a bit of a anticlimactic affair, really. He was doing all right. Was Wanik. Eubank was again very similar to the fight before that against Marcus Morrison, where he was pretty, elusive and a bit bit more cagier than you've seen from that sort of explosive Eubank in years gone by. And I think when he retired with a bad arm, I think, which was, again, I'm not really sure. Nobody's really sure what went on there. It wasn't great. So his last two fights, Eubank, whether this is, I'm guessing it's what he's been working on, hasn't put the fellas to the sword. You know what I mean? I think I expected him to really do Marcus Morrison. No disrespect, but I just thought that was like levels, and I thought it would blast him out, similar to what Zach Parker did after that. Do you know what I mean? And he didn't. So whether this is deliberate or something they're working on, or lulling people into a false sense of security of how they think he'll approach Lee Williams, I don't know. Can I let him change his spots? Is that how Eubank should be fighting? I don't think he looked great from ringside last time out in Newcastle, but again, he's going to be in with a lot better fighter than this guy against Lee Williams. So he's going to have to up it really from his last two fights, I think.
I agree with that assessment, and I think the question about the Leopards changing spots applies to both fighters. Like, you've hit the nail on the head with what we normally expect from Liam Williams, in that come forward, aggressive, throw lots of punches, take one to land two approach. But then I don't personally think that's the way to get the better of Eubank. I think we've seen in his losses against Groves and Saunders that if you can box and you can get him on the end of the jab and keep him out of that sort of danger zone, out of that range, that's the way to beat him and get the better of him and frustrate him. Albeit they did it in different ways. Saunders a lot more on the back foot, Groves coming out and using the jab to take centre ring. If you come in and look to trade with him, I think personally that's where Eubank is at his most dangerous.
Agreed.
I think the sort of potential changes under Roy Jones Jr. I don't know how much of it has changed. Like, we've seen in the past, there's been certain nights where you think Eubank's going to come out and smash someone to bits, and whether it's through lack of fundamentals, that sort of traditional skill in terms of the footwork and his move ability to cut off the ring, he can often throw a punch or two and look a bit cumbersome doing it, and then he sort of styles it out, stands and glares at his opponent from across the ring, throws a little pose in or whatever. And is he like masking something like that? Is he trying to hide something? Is this new version of him a bit more patient, a bit more skilled, a bit more cagey? Or is it, again, that sort of thing of like, right, you're not going to chase someone around the ring, so just wait for them to come to you, and you might have the perfect dance partner in Liam Williams, because I honestly think if Williams comes forward and looks to put it on him and gets right up close and looks to work inside, that's going to be meat and drink for Eubank. Like, that is where he looks more spectacular. If he's in there with an opponent that essentially can't or won't move, is going to be right in front of him and there to be hit, that's when he can look sensational. That's when we see the highlight knockouts of, like, albeit limited opponent, like Avni Yildirim or whatever. Like, obviously the James DeGale that he beat was long past his best, didn't have that sort of same movement for 12 rounds, and that's when Eubank lands. That's when he can throw his hooks, he can land his uppercuts, and he can look devastating doing it.
I think we're sort of nicely flown here into not yet making a prediction, but I guess we're getting into the
alluding to it.
Aspect. Aye, and it's really interesting there what you're saying. That brings us back to the early point of the Adam Booth link up with Liam Williams. How much of those natural instincts of Liam Williams wanting to have a scrap in his hometown occasion in a mad Cardiff crowd can hit Adam Booth sort of tap into, and how many of those natural instincts can he curb? And like you said there, is that meat and drink to Eubank? That's you have certain things of fighters in your head, and that is Eubank at his best for me is when he's laying people out like that. And again, it's people like Yildirim that he just smashed, I think, in the Super Series, and if that is Eubank's best attribute in it, but is it also Liam Williams? Do you know what I mean? Is that where Liam Williams is at his best? Again, I refer to those Liam Smith fights, which could be a bit unfair because it's his former weight. Do you know what I mean? And without a doubt, he's improved since then. And but again, those Liam Smith fights, he was, he lost both on points. Whether you think he did or not, he did. Do you know what I mean?
I'm gonna defend him slightly there. Like, the first one was obviously on the cut, wasn't it? And
yeah, that's true.
I thought he was well in that one. Obviously, again, from ringside, the second one was a bit more clear cut to Smith. You can
I thought that
sort of how he got that decision that time. But I think it's really interesting to see how it does play out. There probably aren't many boxing podcasts or YouTubers that are going to throw in these three names in a comparison to Liam Williams. But I've been thinking like historical examples where a trainer comes in and has been sort of tasked with almost completely changing the style.
Yeah,
And the most sort of high profile one I can think about is when Ricky Hatton had Floyd Mayweather Sr. in his corner for the Pacquiao fight. And you can again totally see the logic in that Hatton is that similar, like he was at his best where he was coming forward and
yeah,
working the body and again taking a shot to land his. And you think, all right, so he then goes with a defensive mastermind in Floyd Senior. Apparently, that's going to sort of add a little layer or two to his game and make him that bit harder to hit, but still keeping all his natural attributes. And it ended in absolute disaster, didn't it? It just didn't work. It was almost like trying to change too much too soon or too much in too short a time. And I
you
not
could
saying that that's
argue.
going to happen necessarily,
Yeah,
but as I say, my main issue from the Liam Williams point of view is just what changes they're going to have had time to implement for such a high profile fight. Like, let's not forget he's coming off a loss, but he's coming straight into it. Probably the most competitive fight that can be made for him outside of world titles.
like shoe on the other foot though, could that be meat and drink to Lee Williams if Eubank goes for him? Is that the way he wants it, or is that not the way he wants it? Is that because you're favouring Eubank?
I think that's the way the fans want it. That is 100% the way the fans want it. It's Williams coming forward, Eubank trying to stand his ground. Whether he can do that or not, that's obviously where our sort of picks and predictions are going to lie ultimately. I think if Liam Williams could come out and totally surprise him, think back to another Adam Booth fighter in George Groves against James DeGale. Everyone expected Groves to be the one who was wound up by the mind games, the pre-fight chat and press conference and stuff. He was going to come out, be overly aggressive, and walk onto something or get countered, get outboxed, get taken apart. Like DeGale was a heavy favourite going into that, and they almost played him at his own game, boxing on the back foot, making it really, really cautious and cagey, and almost like nicking the rounds off him and getting the win that way. If Williams can come out and do that and box and move, I personally think that's a better tactic against Eubank than fighting his own fight.
Yeah.
It seems really sort of counterproductive saying that. Like you want a fighter to play to their own strengths, but sometimes I think you've got to go in there and surprise your opponent, upset him and totally frustrate him. And I think if you can box and move against Eubank, you can make him look foolish at times. Whether Williams can do that for 12 rounds or not is up for debate. As I said, we will find out. I personally don't think he will. I think the occasion, the grudge that is there, and his natural instincts will take over, and he'll look to turn that into a war. I personally think that will favour Eubank more. I think he's got a solid chin on him. He much prefers a fight being in front of him, someone there that he can hit and he can throw his combinations without worrying about whether they're going to be there or not.
No, it's a fascinating point. It really is, and that's the we always say it on here that we like a fight that's got question marks about it, and it's a bit of it could be a pick and fight. You know what I mean? There's a lot riding on it. There's a lot of different sort of permutations and ways it could go. It's not like this isn't one sided by any means. You know, and that's what we want on a Saturday night on your telly. Good fight like this, and I think it's a cracking fight. And we both like a punt. Just checking odds checker here, and Eubank, like you say, is favourite, and I guess you could probably say rightful favourite, pedigree wise and sort of stature wise. I guess 2 to 5, 3 to 10 odds on. So shorter than 3 to 1 on it. It's some places which to go. I guess let's call him the away fighter here to go to Cardiff. Do you know what I mean? In Williams' backyard, I don't know. I still think it's pretty short me, and as a looking for a bit of value, and I don't know. There's 2 to 1 a lot of places. There's Liam Williams, and that's what's catching my eye at the minute. Like, is just the outright Liam Williams win. 2 to 1 with William Hill, with Paddy Power, with Coral. Oh,
how do you see him doing it? If he's going to do it, how do you see the fight playing out?
Adam Booth masterclass. So I didn't even think that before this podcast. But so now it's just.
You're thinking he comes out and totally sort of flummoxes him and changes his what we would associate with being his plan A, and just puts on a boxing lesson, or is it going to be him fighting his way, but ultimately sort of coming out on top in a dogged performance?
I'm
Or do you think
fascinated.
he is the one to check Eubank's chin and gets the stoppage?
My first thought was, right, he's going to come out not steaming at him, but like really setting a high tempo throughout and box, and then not relenting for the full fight. And with that momentum of the crowd behind him, I just thought maybe that's the way he'll do it. On a sort of close-ish points home fighter, Liam Williams just shading it in Cardiff, just setting a real high tempo and just going for, like, not flummoxing Eubank in, like, you know, world-class technical bloody Kazakhstan shit, just like doing enough. Do you know what I mean? But now I'm thinking, I don't know. It's so interesting. And I don't know, for a fight that I think maybe, I've seen a comment on our Facebook today from Darren Ray, former, I think, professional fighter from up here. He was just like, "Oh, Eubank will smash him in 6. It's a massive golfing class." And I'm like, I'm not so sure it is. And that's I'm really sort of buying into this as pretty much 50-50. But if I can get a 2-1 on someone that I think is a genuine 50-50 fight in his home city, I might have to take that. You know what I mean? That's the issue here. Whereas you're getting in my head a bit, as you seem to do, because we always disagree on these type of fights.
I know, I do generally like agreeing. I just want to put this out there for anyone watching and listening. Like, we don't discuss any of this beforehand. We just come on and sort of air our thoughts, chat. Hopefully it flows organically, and it seems to have done so far. But
this isn't
so often we agree on a lot. I think a lot of the main sort of issues and the politics and what we consider bullshit in boxing. But like when it comes to this, we just sort of nicely settle on a different side. And on our little graphic, you're on the Eubank side at the minute. I'm on the Williams side, and I think we're sort of flipping that on its head.
Cousin. I was going to say sibling rivalry, but more cousin rivalry.
Close enough.
I don't know, you can get over 2-1 at some places, I think. Can you? Anyway, I don't know. It's really interesting. I'll be interested to see the sort of props market, like, Williams by points, or you probably interested to see Eubank by stoppage, a bit closer to fight night and see what they are. I can't see them in the minute. They might be out there. I don't know. Very, very interesting.
I agree and disagree with what you and Darren have said there. I think on paper, it's as close to a 50-50 as you can get at this sort of level, because you look at their records, they're fairly similar. They both have lost to good fighters, really. Like, they've only lost world champions, I think. I might be correct there. I might be missing one of the fights from one of them. But, like, they're both at a very, very good level. And I don't think either of them has that real signature win either that's, like, too far above domestic level. Obviously, Eubank and De Gale, which we talked a little bit about there earlier, there's always going to be an asterisk next to that, De Gale being his last fight and what he had left in the tank. But so I don't agree with Darren in that it's a total mismatch ahead of time. I think in terms of matchmaking, it's as evenly matched and as evenly sort of like contested as it could be. But I also agree with them that I think purely because of their styles and the way I see the fight going, with Williams coming out and similar to what you've said there, like coming out and looking to put it on him and being aggressive, I think in doing that, he'll take too much punishment. If he does it from the opening bell, I can see, like Darren said, about 6 or 7 rounds, either corner stoppage or he's just taking too much punishment. Depending on what he can take, because he is obviously very, very tough. He gutted it out against Andrade after a horrific start, got himself up off the canvas. I envisage that he'll have to do the same against Eubank. Will he be able to get himself back into the contest and sort of see the final bell? I don't think so. Like, I'll be looking at Eubank stoppage, as I say. Depending on how the fight goes, that'll dictate how early that happens for me. Could end up with egg on my face. Like, it could go exactly the way you called it. I just think...
Never does, though. Never really does.
Not when you've got money on it, it doesn't.
It's exactly. It's fascinating because, again, just to show this isn't scripted in the slightest, that I was convinced that a few weeks ago we did a flash poll on Twitter, who wins, and kind of shite finder. I was sitting here looking for Eubank Williams, who wins, in Twitter, and it's really interesting that people have done polls. Like BT Sports did a poll August the 5th, 2020. 2020 this is.
Well, use theirs. They might have more votes than we did.
Liam Williams beat Chris Eubank, sort of August 2020, what's that, 18 months ago? Who wins if they fight this year? And Liam Williams was on 52.1%, and Chris Eubank Jr. is 47.9%, scrolling down, right, to another poll here. BT Sport did the same poll March the 13th, 2019.
Lovely, aren't they?
Aye, and Williams won that one on 53.8. But then there's plenty of other polls by 365. Yeah, Eubank 67%, and it's really interesting. And like
what that potentially highlights, though, is obviously like a lot of the BT followers might be that sort of I don't know if Frank Warren has fanboys, but like they might be sort of the Liam Williams supporters again if he's retweeted it or something like that. But
yeah, well, that's it. I know.
Also, like the timing of it, as you said, I think a lot of the perception in boxing is down to what's happening here and now. So before we lost to Andrade, like as I said, a lot of people were picking him to go out there and upset Andrade, and so loads of comments again. Might be fans, might be supporters, whatever. But British people generally follow us on Twitter, like thinking that he was going to go out and stop him, and like Andrade hadn't been tested. Williams was on an absolute roar, like tearing through opponents, looking sort of invincible and unstoppable at that particular level. And he built up a lot of momentum, and then in boxing, I'd say more so than any other sport I follow, that loss totally changes people's opinion of you and highlights maybe flaws and things that people were either unaware of or not as knowledgeable about. And like the cliche is, you're only as good as your last performance or your last fight. So from that, it's like it totally shifts. Whereas in the meantime, Eubank hasn't necessarily done anything to raise his stock, but obviously because he's technically still winning, even against like Marcus Morrison and the opponents you mentioned earlier, like he's just sort of treading water at that moment. He's not taking a hit to his reputation. You're still just waiting for him to have that meaningful fight.
Well, that's it, and that's where my Eubank doubts are coming from, is the last two, which again maybe they were just learning fights and learning on the job in this new style with Roy Jones. He just wasn't great in Newcastle, and he looked a bit flat, and maybe again he couldn't get himself up for the opponent. I don't know. Did expect him to put Marcus Morrison away, like I said earlier. He didn't. Whether again. Is that just him getting the rounds in with Roy Jones? I don't know. But I just think he can't afford to come in this one flat. Again, I don't think he will, just due to, I think, the nature of the atmosphere, and I think it'll be electric in there. I don't think he can afford to sort of take rounds off and coast though either. And I think he's going to have to fire, like you said, and it might not be a night for him to, this new style.
By all means, like I'm not claiming that Eubank is up there as like the Golovkin or like Canelo level. It sounds like I am, and it sounds really disrespectful saying like I think he'll take Williams out in 6 rounds or so. But I think again, like you've obviously said the word there, coasting, and he's been very, very guilty of that, both like in a physical sense, in that he won't move a lot if he doesn't have to. He'll pot around the ring and look very, very sort of chilled and relaxed doing it, almost style over substance. But then it also, like, maybe if he's switching off, because like as I say, his opponent isn't necessarily always there to be hit, and he's not the best mover. Like, I don't think his footwork is particularly great. If you sort of analyze his stance, it's not that traditional orthodox way of moving around a boxing ring. But because Williams is, as we sort of envisage it, we see it going, he's going to be on top of him. So Eubank is going to have to work, and I don't think there are particular question marks over his gas tank. Like, I think if he's forced to work, he'll put that work in, and like Liam Williams fighting his style of fight could play into Eubank's hands and force a better performance from him. That's the way I see it going anyway.
Right, Howie, that's what I'm right. It's 6:30 more or less. We've been on half an hour. We've done a Eubank dance. We've skirted it. Pretty flashy so far. All very technical, but let's go for it. Let's get off this. Well, I guess we've half climbed off the fence, but let's go for it now. Let's make the prediction. What are you saying?
I'm saying Eubank stoppage. I'm convinced, honestly.
I'm not laughing at prediction. I'm just laughing at. Obviously, I'm going to
talk myself into this all week.
I'm going to say Williams points for it.
Well, we did say we weren't sitting on the fence. I think we've just jumped off on opposite sides of it. We're in a different garden at the minute, but no, we don't have to agree. We'll see. This is the beauty of it, isn't it? We'll come back to this and revisit it in a post-fight pod, and I'll be sitting with my Eubank t-shirt on, so I'll get a hoodie or something of his.
It's just funny because it's not done out of malice, no spite, no like aggression, any.
No, like, this is the thing whatsoever. We always try and give a balanced sort of opinion, and we're both trying to be quite like decisive and said this is what's going to happen, and we've just totally added to our impartiality and balanced outlook on the sport.
I'll be sitting crying in my beer on the 5th of February when Eubank sparks him out. I'm going to come back on here the week after if anyone's listening.
The longer it goes, the more nervous I'll get.
Let's just do it. I'm going to go for it. I might even put a 5 on it as well. I can't find any prop markets yet for method of victories and that. I'm surprised they're not out yet with like 9 days to go. But
yeah, I'd had a little look. Obviously, I threw me wild Hail Mary Acker on. There wasn't anything for the method, so I avoided it.
He's still alive with that?
Yeah, there's only one fight being called the Gary Russell upset. Magseo.
Is Maccabi not for you? No?
This weekend, I think.
Right now, right.
It literally goes till about May.
Yes, I'm going to go, and I've seen it. I'm going to go Eubank points.
Oh, Eubank points?
No, Williams points.
Change your mind. I've done it. I've converted you.
No, Williams points. I'm going to go that, right? And this is the thing with our fancy new graphics. If we just had something going on the screen saying undercard. Right, so undercard.
I'll work on it.
I'll quickly go through the undercard and anything that stands out. Clarissa Shields is on there as the long-awaited fight with Savannah Marshall continued.
That's all that is, isn't it? It's like the build-up. Reminds me of a WWE event where like the sort of it's the week before the pay-per-view on Raw, and they're like, right, these guys are fighting for the title, so they're going to be in a tag team match, or you're going to fight so-and-so, and you're going to fight their partner, and like just build, and they'll clash in the ring, they'll be head-to-head, they'll be squaring off, and potentially it'll build it into a really it's probably the women's boxing match I want to see out of all possible matchups.
Well, there's just been a big one announced earlier today as well, mate. So Taylor Serrano finally happening, which is huge.
A bit of northeast bias, man.
No, of course, and I think Savannah will probably fight again in March up here, and I think anyway, and then maybe hopefully them two can get it on later in the year. Both in the same promotional banner now, same TV channel, no excuses after that. One fight each and let's go for it. She's on there. Chris Jenkins is listed to fight Julius Ndongo. That's a bit of a blast in the past, Julius Ndongo.
A random little fight like that. It's just thrown in. You like it's the sort of match you never knew you wanted.
No. Been in with Crawford, Progress, Yelusinov, lost them all. But he's got a victory over Ricky Burns on his record, so that's listed as being on there. English title fight, English welterweight title relay fight. Samuel Antwi versus Conor Walker. Just English title fight, probably be the first one on Class.
I'd only seen that was on today, and again, it's that is obviously the fight we've championed for years, isn't it? Prop these cards up like a Saturday night thing. 2 evenly matched fighters, yes, a lower level of fight, but it's all the potential in the world, hasn't it? And hopefully it catches fire and entertains and sets up for the main event.
Caroline Dubois, pro debut for Caroline Dubois on there as well. And big Hightower, big Northeast lad, Steve Robinson on there, looking to go 5-0 as a pro. Good to see him back on Sky. He's obviously signed with Boxer as well. I'm guessing he'll fight up here in March as well. I'm not secretly revealing the show yet, but I do believe they're coming back up here in March. But he's on there.
Exclusive drop.
Big Steve Robinson. Obviously, don't think he's fighting anyone particularly great, but looking to get another sort of televised knockout, really, and to show his power when doing so. So, looking forward to seeing him again, and he's a character and a lovely lad, isn't he? So, cracking.
That's it. Like, obviously, everyone loves a heavyweight, don't they? Like, he's shown he's got that power, he's got the knockouts, and again, you put him on a card, like whoever he's matched against at this early stage in his career, it's one that you're going to want to tune in for, and I dare say it was something that the casual fans will get on board with as well. He's got the look, and he's got the lot.
So again, he'd be on the televised part of it, I think. So I'm looking forward to it. Saturday the 5th of Feb. Can't wait. I know, you just know that your diary's empty that night, and I know I've got no plans, so looking forward to plonking myself in front of that Saturday and just really getting stuck into that, tweeting through it. Missed all that, missed the interaction on here and stuff, and on Twitter. So excited for it, really am. Williams points.
All right, we'll agree to disagree with that one, and then move on. Again, once I'm all fair with the graphics, I'll transform our background, and it'll go on to like Joshua and Fury and Whyte and Usyk or whatever else we're going to talk about now. We
should have like a little sort of tally chart or something going on Twitter, shouldn't we? Like from now until the end of the year, and see who calls what right, and see who. Don't know what the forfeit will be, but
I start a little league, head to
Little
head.
Cousins league, and then I'll just log myself out of the account and never come back when I'm 6-0 down or something. But no, excited for it. Do we?
Your side has just said it all there. I feel exactly the same, but I feel it's been so much in the news this week that we have to discuss it and have to talk about it and give our opinion on the whole mess I described it as earlier at heavyweight. Like
You can
how
chat us
hard
through
is
the
it?
podcast. Yeah,
How hard is it to get a fight sorted or even called or like purse bids or whatever whatever else has gone on? Like
I
it
know.
just I saw an interview and different clips and stuff with I think it was Tyson Fury. There was one today, and one of the comments underneath just hit the nail on the head, like saying just bored of it all. Like there's two potentially more fights that I thought were almost set in stone. Like you've got a contract with a rematch clause there for Joshua to fight Usyk again. I thought that was just done and dusted. It was agreed. It was happening. Like it was a chance for AJ to get his belts back or get revenge and like avenge that loss and pick up the belts at the same time. And then like Fury in the meantime was going to be kept busy with Dillian Whyte as his mandatory, which in terms of some of the mandatories we've seen over the years, Dillian Whyte being called as a mandatory challenger is brilliant. Like you look at some of Kell Brook's defenses, for example, the IBF, and like there's countless examples of mandatories who you think in questioning how they've even got in the top 15. Never mind position to fight for a world title. Then you've got Dillian Whyte. Whatever you think of him, he's a top 10 heavyweight, no doubt. I
Mm.
would put him 4 or 5 in the division easily. Like is right up there, and suddenly you've got now, say, if Wilder is out of the picture, you've got potentially the top 4 in the division paired off in what should act as a semi-final to then deliver the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Like, that is a perfect dream scenario for
No,
boxing
no.
fans, promoters, the boxers themselves. Like everyone should be like, right, this is happening. This is what we're getting excited about, and yet boxing being as it is, we're still sat talking, and we're going to obviously go on about. I'll give you a word in a minute, but like we're
Thank you.
still sat talking about whether these fights are even going to happen.
No, I know, and I noticed why. First of all, why have his? I guess both sides blame the other, but why have these step aside talks broken down? Like, what has happened today? All I've seen today is Eddie Hearn basically people slagging him on Twitter and just saying he's telling lies, he's saying this, he's saying that, and then I've seen a clip of him with IFL saying that Dillian White's going to knock Fury out, and it's like, oh my god, like he just looked raging about.
Yeah, like
I don't
any other
know.
day, innit? If people on Twitter slagging any head off, but like I think it depends how far you obviously want to go back. I mean, if we look at like with Usyk and Joshua, obviously Usyk beat Joshua. There's a rematch clause in there, which some people were sort of debating whether that was the case or whether that was happening because Usyk himself was mandatory for the WBO title. But I believe because there were other belts on the line that Joshua held, they were able to negotiate a rematch clause into it. So
Yeah,
obviously, if Joshua lost, which he did, you get that immediate chance of revenge, and you think, okay, fair enough. That is a bit of a delay. Like as a fan, I would like to see Usyk fight Fury because it just decides the division. You've got a de facto number one fighter there, like someone set in stuff. That person is the heavyweight champion of the world, which obviously we haven't really had since like I know Klitschko had most of the belts, Joshua's had most of the belts. I believe it was like Lennox Lewis going back to like someone who had all of the belts at
yeah.
that time, all the major ones anyway, whatever constitutes a major title these days. Like so then you're right, okay, that's happening at some point, and I don't know the exact timeline, Dillian Whyte is being called as the mandatory. The WBC are going to decide on the purse split for that. That was then called as 80% Fury, 20% to Whyte, which isn't necessarily unheard of, but is outside of their sort of normal remit, normal rules. So I can see a little bit of why Whyte's a bit pissed off with the split, but also understand why you'd think, well, just take your chance. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get millions for it anyway, and the potential to like upset the world and win that world title and fight for a world title, which he's obviously been calling for
Well, that's it. Maybe
about
he's
10 years,
finally,
anyway,
yeah.
since
Maybe
before he
he's
started boxing.
Yeah, maybe he's finally going to get this shot that he's says he wants. And, I'm just reading here, both sides blaming each other. Hearns came out and said, ultimately, it's Tyson Fury who doesn't want to fight Usyk next in an undisputed fight. He wants to have an intimate fight in March. As we stand right here and now, Dillian Whyte against Tyson Fury will go to purse bids tomorrow, Friday, in Mexico City. Fury's co-promoter, Frank Warren, has described Hearns' version of events as rubbish, and insisting Fury is not the reason the fight was not going ahead. Deal is dead, we move on. Warren told to the purse bids, Warren told BT Sport. So it's he said, she said, who's, you know what I mean?
I think it's hard as like obviously a fan on the complete outside of it all. Like if Joshua has been offered this step aside money, which was reported, I think it was Sunday, late Sunday night and sort of early Monday, the story rumbled on from Gareth A. Davis, and there wasn't necessarily any concrete quotes or anything in that, but Joshua himself came out and sort of dismissed that like it hadn't happened. He wasn't totally adverse to accepting the step aside money, just sort of clearing up the fact that he hadn't accepted anything. There wasn't a contract presented to him or anything like that. So with that like in mind, like then obviously Fury fighting Usyk is completely irrelevant until Joshua actually agrees not to pursue this rematch clause. Like he could forfeit that, I suppose. It's on his side of things, the rematch. Like he doesn't necessarily have to pursue that and go through with it. Usyk, I feel sorry for a little bit, and again, this is just from what's sort of publicly available. He's in a bit of no man's land. Whether Joshua's going to follow through and fight him, and that's the fight he's gonna have and prepare for, or where is this whole step aside thing come from? Like Usyk, Joshua 2, Fury against Whyte, not the single fight that you want, but two very, very sort of good replacements that could build up to that super undisputed unification. I don't understand how Fury can be accused of avoiding Usyk in that sense if Joshua hasn't accepted the step aside money. Like, if they're still contractually obliged to be fighting each other, it's got fuck all to do with Fury. Whereas then whether Fury wants to fight Dillian Whyte or not, there's talk of him, like, not necessarily officially, but a lot of rumours about, he might just vacate if he doesn't want to fight Whyte, he's not going to. Like, all of these boxers, especially Fury and AJ, hold the cards. They are the ones in the position. So obviously, if you're then representing them like Hearn and Warren are, and Top Rank with Bob Arum as well on Fury's side, like they can make those moves. Like Fury could vacate his title and still probably be considered the best fighter in the world, the best heavyweight in the world. Like that doesn't necessarily change what has gone on in the ring to date. Changes people's ideas of him and maybe questions over, what he wants from the sport. But then again, it's that thing like obviously Hearn's got two. I know he has some dealings with Usyk, but Matchroom have sort of options on him. Not, I wouldn't say officially promoter or manager or anything, but Whyte and AJ both represented by Matchroom, by Hearn, working closely with them. He's got a couple of pieces to move around, and it's interesting, like to sort of see exactly how he does that and what's the best option for like all parties, because we can sit here and weigh up the pros and cons of step aside money anyway. I mean, getting paid 15 million quid or a rumoured 15 million, not to do anything, like not to fight, is a no-brainer for 99% of the population. Like, you get paid not to do your job, you're going to take that. But obviously, there's other factors at play. There's like the pride and the ego of Joshua. Like, does he believe that he's going to beat Usyk in this rematch? Is that the one he wants above anything else? Or is he happy to sit it out, and then if Fury beats Usyk, he goes and challenges Fury? Or if Usyk beats Fury, then gets the rematch on? There's like, it's almost that longer term game, and we talk about boxing as being like a chess match, but this is like outside of the ring. They're moving the pieces around and trying to work out where the land's going to lie.
It's mental. Like I tweeted the other day about it, saying it's such a bureaucratic sport at times with a load of hypotheticals, and sometimes you can just switch off from it and zone out. And that is probably for me the most frustrating part of boxing, I think, is I've never been like a purse bid's head or a TV rights or anything like that. Or, the new one is now arbitration. That word's been, I'm sick of that word anyway from the Newcastle takeover. But now it's found its way into boxing. Arbitration's the new one, and step aside fees, and it's just like, and I know it's, I don't want to say I'm old school. I'm not from the freaking 70s or 80s. I like a date, I like a poster, I like a TV channel, and let me go. Do you know what I mean? And I just think what will be. And Fury came out today and who said, who else can't wait for the fight? The best of Britain, and he's tagged in Dillian Whyte, WBC.
Yeah, I'd seen some
And
people
I
out
just,
saying like again, like I want to
is
fight
that
Whyte.
just him? Is that just him going, hey, fuck you? I don't know, but I don't even hate Fury and Whyte, and I don't hate the Joshua Usyk rematch. I get there could be a sporting argument, not a financial one, to think, right, come on, Joshua, a real fighting man, go and avenge your loss. You know what I mean? There is that. I've seen Simon Jordan and Adam Catterall, and I'm not going to replay that now with you, but there's so many sides of this fucking never-ending coin, and it's just hopefully from this. Well, it might not be the outcome. Boxing needs undisputed fights. Maybe today's outcome's not the one most people wanted, but if it just brings some closure to this sorry saga, and we get closer to announcing 2 different fights, at least it's the end of it. At least we've got something to focus on. Try and hopefully treat it as some sort of Super Series semi-finals, the 2 of them, and just fucking make the winners fight each other. You know what I mean?
That's exactly it. I'll never defend fights not getting made because, like, above everything, regardless, like, we don't have any financial interest in the sport at all. But like, even if we did, I don't think I could back that up and defend it. But I totally understand why it's on the cards. And again, like the undisputed fight, it's almost counterintuitive because I spend my time saying, oh well, the belts don't actually mean that much nowadays because you can have world champions, even unified champions, and you think, well, they're not necessarily the best in the division. It's such a backwards sport in that regard. But to have a heavyweight champion holding all 4 of those titles just eliminates so much of the toing and froing and everything that goes around, all the arguments and the opinions that go around. And yes, they do sometimes make the sport more entertaining, but it just, as closure is the word, isn't it? It just puts that sort of nail in the coffin of it, and like, right, this is like this, whoever it is the man. Like obviously Usyk done it at cruiserweight with like the aid of the Super Series, and left no doubt in anyone's mind that he was the champion at that division. Like he was the man at 200 pounds, and as much as I'm saying it, I think in terms of entertainment and fights I'd actually want to see if there were no such thing as belts, Usyk and Fury is probably going to be the least action packed out of all the sort of combinations you could make with them. Like as you say, like Usyk Joshua wasn't like wall to wall action, but it was competitive enough. It was a decent watch. I think Dillian Whyte, for all his flaws, is an entertaining fight. He puts it on the line. He'll come forward, and again he's been stopped before. He's obviously stopped lots of guys. Like he's got that little X factor in that regard that you do want to tune in and see what happens. Whether you're willing to pay for it or not is a different matter. But you've got a bit of intrigue around him, and I think him against Fury would be a fairly one-sided fight. I think
Me too.
Whyte has shown over the past, like over his 2 fights with Chisora, for example, that he's a very similar level, but also quite a similar style to him. Their styles meshed really well and created 2 good, entertaining fights. But Fury absolutely schooled Chisora. So I think in 2022, it's more of the same of that, and I think it'll be a comprehensive win for Fury. Joshua and Usyk, I did pick Usyk the first time, so obviously I'm going to lean towards him the second time, and it's hard to talk about it without saying, well, it's going to be Usyk and Fury, but like the upsets could happen. It could be Joshua. Like part of me wants, as much as I like Usyk as a boxer, part of me would love that Joshua to get that revenge and then fight Fury, but it's all about if that happens, if that guarantee happens. Like these could be their first fights of the year, and then they kick on, and obviously the winners face each other, as you say, as a little semi-final eliminator. But it's really that straightforward, and I've got no faith whatsoever that's going to happen. I mean, I remember last year when they'd announced, hadn't they? They'd signed, there's a date, like, Fury and Joshua have agreed to fight each other. It's happening, and I remember getting into so many people hammering me online, like about the fact I was being negative, and it was just like, like I don't believe it's going to happen until, as you say, there's a poster, there's a date, there's a venue. Like, they've agreed to fight each other, but they need to sort out how much each other's getting paid. They need to find out when it's going to take place. They need to find out where it's happening. It's like, well, it's not happening.
What channel it's on?
It's not done. And like again, as I say, we've even got like contracts stating that these fights have to happen. I nearly fell off my stool there. And then they're not happening. Like it's what more can anyone do to pin down these fights?
That's another thing. Like I said before, it's boxing at times and is a very, very hypothetical sport, and the heavyweight division seems to have more hypotheticals around it than any other one at this point. And it's just, it can drive you mad. And I think this is what's refreshing about coming on here talking Eubank Williams or whatever the zone scheduler, because that is happening and we can talk about these actual fights, and the hypothetical nature of the sport can drive you mad. And that was another one you reminded us of last year, all the push notifications from Sky on the phone and stuff. And site visits was another fucking term I hated last year. Site visits in Saudi and this and that. And I was like, oh man, no one cares. Well, I don't anyway. Some people must, but
you don't care, but then you still click, don't you? Like it is that clickbait thing. It's the culture we live in of you're interested, you want to believe that it's been made, so you read it, and then you're disappointed with yourself for bothering to click it and read more of nothing. Hopefully,
by the time we speak next week, we'll have even more sort of clarity on the situation and see how these purse bids go on Friday and stuff. But we've got to talk about it. It's big news, you know what I mean? And it's just, fingers crossed, we just get some date and something to get stuck into, and instead of just talking about it again. And another month's gone by. January's now basically done, and the water's still muddy. And I don't know.
I think as we get into February and definitely March, it's going to be a lot easier to avoid talking about the talk. There's obviously a fair bit of actual boxing coming up, and I know that's a bit of a novelty. A boxing website won't actually talk about the boxing and what's happening in the ring.
There's loads.
It'll be a lot easier for us to do that, and hopefully we'll get into our swing of things and build a bit of momentum.
Yeah, I think February and March in particular seem to be absolutely going to be crackers. I think there's more announcement to come, and it's just going to be a bit mad, I think. What else is going on? You were at the Job's boxing press conference last week? Or
I was indeed, yeah. Very, very slick operation. Big shout out to Danny and Matt there for hosting, and obviously all the boxers and everyone behind the scenes. Honestly, it was at the gym. It was a photo shoot going on. There was various media outlets. I'm probably going to forget some, but Sporting Icons were there. It was good to see lads from Peak Magazine. I think it was Northern Sports Marketing. I apologise if I get that wrong. Someone we interact with on Twitter. There's a good few sort of representatives of Northeast boxing and the boxing media up here as well. So it's always nice to catch up with everyone and have a bit of chat. But really well run. They had sort of 3 or 4 different stations around the gym for us to set up. I was lucky enough to get my camera in the actual ring. Had the backdrop of a few photos. Got to speak to a few now. Obviously a few of the Jobs lads and lasses, but also Adam Gale was there. Jordan Barker Porter was there. Good to catch up with her. There's again really good mix, and I think it's brilliant that we obviously bang the drum about Northeast boxing, but I think a lot of those prospects they might not even it sounds horrible. They might not even get to 10 fights as a pro. We've seen it before with people falling away from the sport, falling out of love, life gets in the way, all the rest of it. But they're getting that little sample of the sort of media and
the big time
training, practice, just enjoying and that side of it. And I mean, some of them might not want that side of it. They might just want to concentrate on the boxing. But everyone, to a man and a woman, they were absolutely spot on. Obviously towards the end of it, being there a few hours, getting a couple of people after they'd done a few other interviews, but some really good chat. And they'll be dropping sort of throughout hopefully over the weekend and throughout the next couple of weeks there. Ahead of their show on February 26th was the one that most of them are going to be featuring on. So hopefully another decent Northeast card. Some interesting matchups discussed off camera, put it that way.
Good man, good stuff. From my point of view, I've got a lunchtime podcast interview, Zoom chat with Thomas Hodgson tomorrow. I'm looking forward to speaking to him. Been meaning to do for ages, and just messaged him this week and thought, let's get this over the line. Very talented boxer, former Berkeley boxer for a bit, turned pro last year with Dennis Hobson. He's now 3-0. I call him the hidden gem of Northeast boxing. I think extremely talented, and looking forward to seeing how he does in the pros. Another one of those talented amateurs that's turned over, maybe with not as much fanfare as the others, but again, very talented lad. So looking forward to having a chat with him, and that'll probably be up at some point over the weekend.
That could help him, to be honest, as well, though, couldn't it? Like, as you say, he's sort of going not off the radar necessarily,
Yeah.
but not as much fanfare maybe as like the likes of the McCormack twins and some of the lads that have signed with Matchroom, and he's gone about his business very well so far, and I'm dying to see like just how far he can go.
Expecting a big announcement tomorrow about a Northeast show in towards the end of March as well. So eyes peeled for that one. I believe it's coming tomorrow. So exciting times again up here. Plenty to get stuck into in the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, I think we'll call that a day. But just before we
nice,
do,
55 minutes.
On our little graphic there, you can see we've got a few little icons, encouraging people to hit that bell on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got the like, we've got share button. Please get retweeting. We've put this out directly on Twitter as well. Hopefully, if that has worked, and obviously give us a like and like tell your friends, spread word of mouth in it. But I think what we'd also say, we always like gush and thank people in that, don't we? But like it is it's nice to hear from everyone, and like there's nothing better. I think it's took us a while, hasn't it, to do these live videos and actually sort of pluck up the courage to do it and put ourselves out there a bit. But we're hoping to keep building it and get as many views as possible. But like drop us feedback, like whether drop in the DMs or give us a comment underneath this on YouTube or Twitter or however you're watching or listening, and like let us know. We're obviously learning ourselves. We're trying to get bigger and better all the time, and like we genuinely do appreciate the feedback and the chat from boxing fans. It's mainly the main reason we do it.
No, we do. What else? Again, no, just echo what you said. Your audios on all the big channels, your Spotify, SoundClouds, Apple. If you want to listen on your commute to work, anything like that, just us two rabbiting on for now, then go for it. We will keep doing them regularly. We've got a competition at little giveaway, Ricky Hatton program on the pin tweet of our Twitter as well at the minute. So get involved with that.
Yeah, you'll see on there it's hinting at a return for round for pound. We're hoping to get this up and running over the weekend, early next week at the very latest. We'll have that all up and running. All information will be on our socials and the website as well. Those of you that obviously know about it, hopefully you'll come back, and those that don't, hopefully you will be introduced to it very, very soon.
Nice one, cracking. Enjoyed it. Williams points.
It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.